friends, hello! It's me, Alessandra, and we are doing something really different today. I've got over a decade of experience in events, and specifically event design. Can this help me make my design work easier, give me ideas, help stimulate the imagination, show my clients? And honestly, I think the answer is yes. I don't know about you, but if you haven't heard about Stable Diffusion and the AI system that is taking over the art world and the internet, I mean, incredible tool that people are using. The TLDR is you have some sort of input, usually a text or maybe even image. You give it some context and you let it do its thing. And you can get all sorts of crazy things. I want to show you kind of what the AI interface could look like if you use the GUI. And the GUI is mostly just for those of us that are not super tech friendly and you're trying to figure out like how do you navigate this. This might be what you look at as opposed to those that are capable on the next tier to do like Python scripting and stuff like that. For automatic 1111 is going to look something like this. I'm currently running 1.4 in Stable Diffusion, and I have been loving it so far. What we're working in is text to image in Stable Diffusion, and this is one of the variations of the prompts that I gave it. So the prompts is essentially the equivalent of like, how would you describe the scene? How would you describe the picture that you're trying to create? So in this instance, I said autumn wedding table centerpiece, because that's most important. Realistic, photograph, ultra detailed, HQ, high quality, 8K, DOF, depth of field, symmetrical composition, zoomed out, HDR, high detail resolution, and photo. There are going to be a lot of videos coming out on how to sculpt your prompts into getting what you want. I am just teaching myself and learning through Reddits and Googling and all the Discord commentary. So loosely, what I learned is if you put something at the front, that takes more priority than something at the end. If you put a period at the end of something as opposed to a comma, it gets more preferential treatment when the AI is trying to develop your images for you. Sampling steps, essentially the equivalent of how detailed and how hands-on does this AI get. The sampling method, I am still learning, but all of the different inputs that the AI references. I've been working with Euler A, the Euler Ancestral, and it's been working out pretty good for me. Batch size and batch count is going to depend on your unique system and what you're running. I can't go higher than a batch count of 2, but I can go all the way up to a batch count of, I think it's 12 or so. CFG is essentially the equivalent of how strongly do you want the AI to pay attention to your prompt. So the higher you go, the stricter it must adhere to this, and the lower you go, the crazier it gets. Height and width, for me, is pretty much locked down to a 512 by 512 image, just because that's what my computer can handle, and hopefully upscaling will get better and we can size some of these images up. Now, seed is just a random variable. You can save the seeds from your generations to recreate images or similar images. Script is exactly what it sounds like, a script. So you put in all this information, you hit generate, and you see what you get. In my generation, I included the negatives, which would be the things you do not want, which would be text, people, or blurry images. And I think that's a good starting place for a lot of people. So this is just a screenshot of that particular run. You could see this is one of the images I found, and I thought, oh, this is gorgeous. We can do something with this. Let me show you a little bit of what to expect, and let's see if we could actually design a wedding. I think we can. We got to start with the wedding, right? The actual wedding ceremony. So we'll talk about some of those fails. So you might be generating 20 pictures at a time, 10 pictures at a time. It does not mean that you will be getting what you want every time and they're all going to be picture perfect. Let me show you some examples. The heck is going on here? We got the aisle over here, the chivalry chairs over here. I mean, this one's not terrible. The people get real weird. That's why you said no people. The AI is still learning how to make good people, like we are. This is actually a pretty good shot if we took out the altar at the end. That's a little wonky, but I mean, this is a nice wedding aisle. So you can see the AI is doing its best to generate images. So literally to make one good image, you might have to make 20 or 50 terrible images. And that's just, a matter of the AI getting better over time, your prompt sculpting getting better, you're messing with your scales. It's something that happens. It puts random text in sometimes just because you tell it not to do things. Clearly it does what it wants because, you know, AI. But, you know, some of these aren't terrible. Like, I love these little like, I guess balls. What are we calling them? Mummins. But, you know, the rest of this, not what my dreams are made out of. There's some really great stuff. There's also some really weird stuff. Don't get upset and think this is going to replace the designers or anything like that anytime soon. You are safe. I am not worried about my job going anywhere anytime soon. But that doesn't mean that this isn't a great tool to work with. So we've seen some fails. Let's see some great installations of wedding ceremonies that the AI was able to generate for us. These are some of my favorites, and let me show you what one set of renderings could look like. So you get grids when everything is done, so you can see at a glance all of the ones you got. So you can tell some of them are little bananas, some of them look really good, and that's just part of the experience right now. So here's another grid over here. I'll show you, and we'll go through some of these images more. So you can see really, really beautiful, some crazy looking people, and some that are a little off. It's just part of the experience. But I will say, from a creative point of view, I also kind of love it because you get things like this. Like, is this perfect? No. But I love the uniqueness of the shape. I love the layering of the greenery, but the more architectural installation of the flowers up front. Is this 100% picture perfect and looking like something out of a wedding magazine? No, of course not. But it's very cool and conceptual, and I could see the right couple having this in their wedding ceremony. Maybe not this random pole behind it, and maybe not this draping overhead, but this wedding arch is very cool. It's very unique, and for that couple looking for that statement piece, here's a great way to help generate ideas and brainstorm and get something different in your day-to-day design. All right, so these are some of the ones that I thought were pretty great. We have a nice autumn wedding ceremony. This is the seating area. We see a little bit of the aisle. Another shot that I thought was pretty good. This is actually a pretty great shot, and actually, for all things considered, pretty realistic. These are real chairs. This is an altar that is feasible, expensive, but feasible. This one I thought was a unique, interesting take because I did not see a lot of the AI generate literal pumpkins in its installations. It's very literal in the autumn trees, you know, the fall colors. But I thought, you know, this is a very reasonable arch that could be made. And I liked that it incorporated these whitewashed pumpkins or gourds, whatever they are, in the aisle. I'm not sure I would have thought of that instinctively with this particular arch, but I was like, you know, I'm not mad. There's something there. Okay, this one's obviously a little bit more on the abstract side. Like, we don't need all these chairs stacked here. But, again, going back to that unique couple that wants something different that's not been seen before, what an installation this would be, right? I mean, absolutely gorgeous. We have a little bit of curvature in the supporting elements here. So this could very well be like one big arch, and then the florist could make a special structure to go on top of it to get that kind of unique shape. Super, super cool. We saw this grid. And then, again, a nice shot. Is it kind of weird with like the super wall in the background? Yeah, a little bit, but there's something to this arch. This walkway is realistic. Honestly, pretty realistic. I mean, does the floor look like lava? Yes, a little bit. It went a little heavy on the petals. But you know what? I've seen brides do worse. So I think this is a winner. Another great one is orange, a common color for weddings in general. No, but it does come up, especially more in the fall. And I love this kind of dark, almost burnt orange with that little bit of brown. But then they paired it with the brown curtains. And I thought, you know, that's kind of cool. They layered a little bit of sculptural floristry on the bottom. They thought, and I was like, you know, this is really thought through. The AI is actually kind of crushing it. And if you notice, there's a pretty wide range of indoor-outdoor wedding themes to balance things out, which is pretty cool. Another one of the grids. You can see here, like, this is a nice aisle. There's plenty of chairs. It's not the most centered, but, like, it just goes into the forest. Just all. These guys over here, just sitting, looking at the trees. This is one that I thought, maybe not a perfect shot across the board, but, like, these flowered trees, I've not seen anything like that flanking a wedding altar, ceremony spot, whatever you want to call it. They're pretty great and huge statement pieces. So again, that unique factor. There's a lot of inspiration you could use here. You can see in this grid here, I'm sure you can't see the individual images, but you could just see at a glance. This is one run of the prompt, and these are all the images that made in that run. How many of them are usable? Probably 2 or 3 of them, but it doesn't mean there's not good content here. This one I thought was so fun, especially if you could just put like a little pumpkin handle, you know, like from the stem up here. You essentially got a giant pumpkin out of what I'm assuming is mums or something, and I thought, oh, for the fall loving couple, this is really great. It's got some candles, which maybe wouldn't have put in red, but doesn't matter. There's a lot of great content here, and a lot of content specifically that is usable to show a client, for inspiration, to show your vendors. A little bit more abstract. We don't normally see oval shaped altars and wedding arches and frames, whatever phrasing you like to refer to them as. I mean, pumpkins on the chair. I don't know how it was planning on attaching these to a Shivari chair, but there's something to this frame here that I thought was really cool. Different. I haven't seen anything like that. This is one that definitely caught me by surprise. If we're going to look past these assorted pom-poms, the chair backs. I mean, how beautiful are the chair backs that the AI generated? Another one where the chairs in the aisle were on point, but we were missing an altar or something. But, think about that. This is pretty great because you could then go in and put your own rendering, SketchUp, mock-up, whatever you want to do here. And look, you already have this setting made up for you. We saw some of these pictures already. We did not see the ones with the janky legs. We went through this one already. We saw this one. This is a nice one. Not 100% perfect. It put some random text in, but this is beautiful, especially for a South Asian wedding. The front of this on a mandap or something would just be stunning with these colors and some nice crisp golds. This is another one. Thought it was super abstract and different. Did the people look real? No. Would I put the tree stump flanking here? No. But I really liked that, is it trapezoid shape where it's narrower in the back, wider in the front, this massive canopy, hanging florals. Yeah, I'm into that. Would I want the florals to match in the front and the back? Yeah, I would. But conceptually, there's a lot here that's really great and really fun. I don't know what's going on here, but I thought, you know, if this is maybe the flanking part of the entrance and there's another one on the other side of the aisle and they walk through this, I like it. It's different. How gorgeous is this one, right? Those yellow florals, the lighting it made. Listen, if you're in one of those places where you're like, hey, my couple is getting married, I hate the venue, it's sentimental to them, or it's really old and historic and you can only do so much, this could be a truss installation. This could be truss layered behind it with all these curtains, and you don't damage the structures to the facilities, keeping your costs down. I don't know if we got Casper the Ghost come into our wedding or what, but the structure here is beautiful, especially if you put it into like a gazebo or mandap or, you know, any of the four-sided structures that you can use at weddings. This would be incredible. This one is just beautiful. I love all the flowers. I love all the textures. Oh, one of my favorites, the giant pumpkins. You know, there's a lot going on here, but honestly, maybe if you didn't have the random red petals and then you just had the pumpkins and maybe some greenery underneath them and this white structure, that would be so cool, wouldn't it? I think so. It would look like you got married in a fancy pumpkin patch. Enough with all of the wins. We have decided, I think, that the AI in Stable Diffusion was able to help us come up with at least one wedding idea, right? I think we can safely say with, 30-something items here, we can use one of these designs. So the wedding ceremony, taken care of. And we looked at the fails. Let's look at some of the centerpieces. Now, I showed you this earlier. This is what it looks like for Automatic1111 in Stable Diffusion. And this is really honestly the prompts that I was mostly using on a wedding table centerpiece, right? Let's look at some of the grids just at a glance so you could see some of the pictures we're getting. There's a lot here. There's a little bit less here. It's kind of great because you get an at a glance view, but then you can also go back and share really easy. I like this feature for sure. Now, all of the pictures that are mostly usable and realistic, I'll be uploading to the blog and be sharing them on Pinterest. So make sure you go over there, check that out, and are following me on Pinterest so you can get all of these delivered to your feed, because there's some really, really great stuff in here. So the real question is, we have plenty of fall centerpieces that truthfully would be gorgeous for weddings. I'm just going to scroll through these, but a lot of these could be great for your Thanksgiving table or really any just fall table around the home. You could bring these to your local florist and get a fresh arrangement of these, or you could probably make a lot of these as silks if you're into that and you just wanted some inspiration on things to do that are unique and different. Lots of beautiful arrangements here. And like I said, these will all be on the blog, so if you want to peruse through, these are just going to be some of my favorites that I share. I definitely want to talk about the fabulous over-the-top centerpieces. You would see down here, there's a few more prompts. So here's one way that I took that prompt and changed it up. I put elaborate autumn wedding table centerpiece with burgundy flowers. And so we layered in the words elaborate and burgundy flowers. You can see there was some great stuff down here. I'll show you later. We kept the sampling steps up, so more hands-on the higher you go. So the AI had quite a high involvement. For context, the default settings for sampling is about 20. And the CFG, which is how much does it stick to the original prompt, is usually defaulted at 7. So I cranked the prompt information up and cranked down how much it had to adhere to it. And it got some really great results. An earlier rendering I did just said elaborate autumn wedding table centerpiece. So you don't have to have the burgundy in, and the burgundy or color descriptor does not necessarily guarantee you that color, it just helps. Let's see if the reception is going to be beautiful. So these are some of the fabulous centerpieces that I found in this rendition that I loved. I thought this was very realistic, very beautiful, and perfect for a wedding because you could see over it. It's nice. It's going to have big impact on your table. You can put a little votives around it. It's not going to take up too much room, so you'll have your bread, your salad plates, all their tchotchkes. But it's a beautiful, impactful centerpiece. Another one, sure, we're going to probably crop out the random candle holder that's in here, and maybe these weird mini pumpkins. But this centerpiece itself, with the mini pumpkins and the big Gerber daisies and the filler, is actually pretty realistic. But also, how gorgeous would this be on your Thanksgiving table, right? Another classy one. I liked a lot of the elements. I liked the layering of the bright yellow, the dark burgundy. This one, assuming we use, LED candles and not real candles in here, this is simple and beautiful with just roses and some fall leaves. A little extra filler, but you get where I'm going with that. Another one that I hope I can put on my Thanksgiving table someday. This has got a lot of grandeur to it, a lot of luxe to it, especially if you use LED candles for safety purposes. This would be a beautiful, beautiful arrangement for Thanksgiving. This one was really fun, and it caught me off guard, and it was part of the burgundy run because it did technically give me burgundy, but it gave me a little bit of a lighter shade of burgundy, almost that pink. And I thought, it actually looks pretty great with the fall colors, and while I might not have necessarily put that pink in there, I might consider in the future. One of the tall ones. Isn't this beautiful? I love the layering of all the different colors in there. There's some darks, there's some light oranges, there's some even brighter yellows in there. And then this beautiful arrangement at the bottom. This one really struck me as interesting because there is some oranges in it, but it relied heavily on the yellows and the greens, which some part of the country gets more yellows and greens for their fall as opposed to that rich red oranges that we see in the northeast part of the states. The AI is crushing it, honestly. I think as far as fabulous centerpieces go, this is up there. It's very sculptural, it's impactful, but it's had enough images fed into it where it knows that oftentimes for wedding centerpieces that are taller, it is not uncommon for the base to be clear or thin, or I should say maybe more narrow or thin, because depending on what type of wedding you're having, typically you want your guests to enjoy the company of others at the table. Now, don't get me wrong, we've all seen the crazy spreads in the wedding magazines, and they've got these $5,000 centerpieces that are so crazy, and they're gorgeous and beautiful. But if people can't see across the table and see who's sitting with them, I always recommend against it. And I say weddings, but this is true for corporate events, private events, nonprofit fundraisers, any of those things. A lot of this is interchangeable concept in theory. The line of sight between those that are sitting at the table together and the people who are either presenting or on a stage or something like that, always very, very important to keep in mind. Okay, so we just talked about the height and how it should either be low or tall and narrow so you can see everybody. So like, I get that. But this arrangement, if we just took it off of this crazy shenanigans of a table here, right? We just focus on this. This would look breathtaking, either on the floor flanking where the couple is getting married, or maybe at the front of the aisle where guests walk in and see that front of the aisle. These would be beautiful. Or if you could get pedestals to put these on to flank a stage or a podium. I mean, this arrangement in and of itself, very expensive. Don't get me wrong. This would be a very expensive centerpiece to get done in real life, but it would be a statement piece. Somehow I ended up with a table runner made out of floral, and I'm not mad. Honestly, it looks really, really great. There's, if you look super closely at some of the details, yeah, sure, it gets a little weird. But as far as inspiration goes, which is what we're using Stable Diffusion and AI technology for at this point, this is really great. And besides the flower composition and, maybe the pairing of the wood and stuff, let's just look at this on a bigger scale. There's no yellow in these pictures. So did you want all of the tables to happen? Maybe this table is yellow and this table is orange and this table is red. I don't know, but that's just the thing. We don't know, but seeing some of these images will spark your imagination and help you come up with all sorts of cool things. So while you might not literally do this, you might do a yellow one here, and then an orange one here, and then a darker red one over here, and have this cool kind of fall ombre effect. But I do know that Stable Diffusion is a fantastic tool, and if you can figure out how to use it or utilize it in Dream Studio, where you subscribe and you can run it through their system so you don't have to do all the scripting and coding on your end, I highly recommend you get in there and play with it, because I have just had a blast. This has been a really weird journey. I loved every element of this. The fails, the really good ones, the exceptionally good ones. There's some weird stuff, sure, but there is also some incredible things that this AI has generated, and I kind of can't wait to show some of these to clients and be like, hey, look at this. Let's try something like this, or let's take this and change this color or something. And having this tool, I don't feel like my job is threatened at all, but I do feel like I have a new creative resource that I can play with and use. So I hope this is inspiring to you guys. If you're interested in trying Stable Diffusion, 100%, 10 out of 10, recommend. If you're not a coder or scripter or somebody, that's okay. Dream Studio has an option where you can subscribe and run it through their systems, and you just pay kind of depending on what your usage is like. So that's one option. 2, you could be like, hey, Alessandra, I had this crazy idea for some fun, like, snowy winter wonderland wedding or something, in the comments down below, and I'll be like, okay, let me see what I can do, because I want to just try a million different types of weddings and parties and see what we can come up with, and I might just be doing that. So if you have requests, leave them in the comments down below, and if you want to see more Stable Diffusion, well, just let me know. Give me a thumbs up. All right, friends, my name is Alessandra. Thanks for hanging out with me today and exploring the craziness that is Stable Diffusion.